The sun shone brightly over the prestigious preparatory school, casting a warm glow on the annual social event. Laughter and chatter filled the air as students mingled, showcasing their designer clothes and expensive accessories. Dorian Hargrove stood at the center of it all, surrounded by his wealthy friends. He laughed loudly, his eyes scanning the crowd, searching for someone to entertain his friends with a story or a joke. Then, his gaze landed on Elias Carter. Elias was a quiet boy, often hidden in the background, sketching in his notebook. His talent for art was well known among a select few, but most students overlooked him. Dorian's heart raced with anticipation. A cruel idea sparked in his mind, a prank that would entertain his friends and reinforce his social dominance. "Hey everyone, look over there," Dorian called out, pointing toward Elias. His friends turned, curious. "Did you know Elias is obsessed with painting? He has a secret crush on the art teacher." Laughter erupted among his friends, but Dorian's smile faltered as he saw Elias's expression change. A hush fell over the crowd, the laughter that Dorian expected replaced by shock. Elias's face turned crimson, and he looked as if he wanted to sink into the ground. This was not the reaction Dorian had anticipated. A wave of embarrassment washed over Elias, and he quickly gathered his things, retreating from the scene. "Did you see that?" one of Dorian's friends whispered, a mix of amusement and disbelief in their voice. Dorian's heart sank as he realized the weight of what he had just done. He had wanted to impress, to entertain, but instead, he had humiliated someone who had always been on the fringes. Dorian shrugged off the discomfort. "It was just a joke," he said, trying to convince himself. But deep down, he felt a storm brewing within Elias, a flicker of pain that he had ignited. As Elias fled the scene, tears welled in his eyes. He had always been the quiet one, never wanting to draw attention to himself. But today, Dorian's cruel prank had shattered the fragile peace he had maintained. He stumbled away from the crowd, his heart pounding in his chest. Why did he have to stand out? Why couldn't he just be invisible like he wanted? In a secluded corner of the schoolyard, Elias sat down on a bench, his sketchbook trembling in his hands. He opened it to a blank page, the white surface glaring at him. He felt the sting of humiliation, but within that pain, something else began to flicker, a determination. He would not let Dorian's cruelty define him. With a deep breath, Elias picked up his pencil and began to draw. The strokes flowed from his hand as he poured his emotions onto the page. Each line represented his hurt, his anger, and his desire to rise above the pain. "What's wrong with him?" one of Dorian's friends asked, still chuckling. "He's so weird. Why doesn't he just get a life?" Dorian forced a laugh, but inside, he felt a growing discomfort. This was supposed to be fun, but now he was left with an uneasy feeling. As he watched Elias in the distance, sketching furiously, Dorian wondered if he had gone too far. "Come on, let's find someone else to mess with," one of his friends said, pulling him back into the crowd. Dorian followed, but his mind lingered on Elias. The boy's quiet strength seemed to draw him in, even as he tried to push those thoughts away. In that moment, Dorian faced a choice: to continue his reign of social dominance or to acknowledge the pain he had caused. But for now, he chose to laugh and play along, unaware of the deeper consequences of his actions. The sun continued to shine, blinding him to the storm that was brewing beneath the surface, both within Elias and himself. Dorian Hargrove stood in front of his mirror, adjusting his collar with a satisfied smile. The sun shone brightly outside, casting a golden glow on his polished shoes. Yet, even as he prepared for another day at the prestigious school, a nagging feeling stirred in his chest. Memories from his childhood crept into his mind, whispering secrets he tried to ignore. In his flashback, Dorian saw himself as a young boy, surrounded by the high expectations of his parents. Every artwork he brought home was scrutinized, every grade was a reflection of his worth. "You must be perfect, Dorian," his mother would say, her voice sharp as a knife. "Anything less is unacceptable." The pressure suffocated him, and he learned to seek validation through the laughter of others, even if it meant hurting someone else. As Dorian recalled his past, he felt a flicker of guilt, but today he brushed it aside. Standing at the center of his friends, he basked in their approval, feeling invincible. "Did you see Elias's face yesterday?" He laughed, enjoying the memory of the quiet boy's humiliation. His friends joined in, their laughter ringing in the air. "What a loser!" one of them exclaimed. Meanwhile, at the other end of the school, Elias Carter sat alone in the art room. The bright lights overhead felt cold against his skin. He stared at the blank canvas in front of him, grappling with the feelings of inferiority that had consumed him since the incident. The laughter of Dorian and his friends echoed in his mind, a constant reminder of his place in the social hierarchy. "Why can't I just fit in?" Elias whispered to himself, his voice barely audible. The loneliness pressed down on him like a heavy blanket. But as he picked up his pencil, something inside him stirred. He remembered the warmth of art, the way colors could come alive, the way lines could tell a story. With each stroke of his pencil, Elias began to pour out his emotions. "I will not be a victim," he murmured, determination fueling his movements. The sharpness of the pencil felt empowering in his hand as he sketched a figure that represented his pain and resilience. The lines began to take shape, transforming into something beautiful. "I can't believe you're still drawing," a voice interrupted his thoughts. It was Mia, a classmate who often sat near him in art class. "You're really good at this." Her smile was genuine, and for a moment, Elias felt a flicker of hope. "Thanks," he replied, trying to mask the uncertainty in his voice. I need to express what I feel." Mia nodded, her eyes brightening. "Art is a great way to do that. You should show it to more people. It's important." Elias's heart raced at the thought. Could he really share his art? Would anyone care? The humiliation he felt from Dorian lingered in the back of his mind, but the spark of resilience grew stronger. As the days passed, Elias continued to immerse himself in his drawings. He filled pages with art that spoke of his struggles, his loneliness, and his dreams. Each piece was a step closer to reclaiming his voice. He shared his work with Mia, who encouraged him to enter the upcoming school art showcase. "Elias, you have to do this," she insisted one afternoon, her enthusiasm contagious. "Your art deserves to be seen. You have a gift." Elias hesitated, the fear of judgment creeping back in. What if they don't like it? What if Dorian laughs again? Mia placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "You can't let him control how you feel about yourself. This is for you, not him. Show everyone who you really are." Her words resonated with him, igniting a fire deep within. For the first time, Elias felt a sense of empowerment. He wanted to share his truth, to let others see the world through his eyes. As he sketched late into the night, Elias felt a sense of calm. The colors danced across the page, forming not just images, but a story of resilience. He was no longer just the quiet boy. He was an artist. And in that moment, surrounded by his sketches, he began to believe that he could rise above the pain. With a deep breath, he whispered to himself, "I will not let this define me." And as the moonlight streamed through his window, Elias found his strength, ready to embrace the future. As the school year moved forward, the sun continued to rise and set over the prestigious preparatory school, casting long shadows on the lives of its students. Dorian Hargrove remained at the center of his social circle, surrounded by laughter and privilege. But while Dorian thrived in the spotlight, Elias Carter discovered a new path. Elias had quietly gathered a group of friends who appreciated him for more than just his artistic talent. They were kind, thoughtful, and encouraged him to share his work. Among them was Mia, a girl from his art class who had a passion for photography. "Elias, you have to show everyone your sketches at the art showcase," she urged one day, her eyes sparkling with excitement. "You can't keep hiding your talent." Elias smiled shyly, his heart racing. "I don't know. What if they don't like it?" he replied, glancing down at his hands. Mia shook her head. "You won't know unless you try. Your art is amazing. You deserve to be seen." With every passing day, Elias immersed himself deeper into his art. He spent hours in his room, sketching and painting, pouring all his emotions onto the canvas. The pain he felt from being bullied transformed into vibrant colors and powerful images. He was creating a masterpiece meant to capture the struggles and strengths of those who felt invisible, just like he once did. Meanwhile, Dorian began to feel a shift in the air around him. As he walked through the crowded hallways, he noticed whispers and excited chatter about Elias and his artwork. "Did you see what Elias did?" one student said, pointing to a shared social media post. "It's incredible!" Dorian's brow furrowed with concern. He could no longer ignore the growing recognition Elias was receiving. Doubts crept into Dorian's mind, gnawing at him. What if Elias's art outshone everything Dorian had ever accomplished? The thought sent a shiver down his spine. One afternoon, as Dorian sat with his friends at lunch, he couldn't shake the feeling of unease. "Why are people so obsessed with Elias's art?" he asked, trying to mask his frustration. "It's just sketches." "Come on, Dorian," one friend replied, rolling his eyes. "You know it's more than that. He's actually talented. You should be worried about your own stuff." Those words stung. Dorian forced a laugh, but inside, he felt a storm brewing. He had always been at the top of the social ladder, and now he sensed it slipping away. As the art showcase approached, the excitement in the school intensified. Posters advertising the event decorated the walls, showcasing the talents of various students. Elias felt a mix of anticipation and fear. He wanted to share his work, but doubts lingered. One evening, while working late on his piece, Elias heard a knock at his door. It was Mia. "I brought snacks," she announced, holding up a bag of cookies. "And I want to see your masterpiece." Elias hesitated. "It's not finished yet. I'm not sure it's good enough." Mia stepped inside, her expression serious. "Elias, listen to me. You have a gift. You need to believe in yourself. Let me help you." With her support, Elias opened up about his fears. "What if Dorian and his friends laugh at me again?" he confessed, biting his lip. Mia placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "They might, but that doesn't matter. What matters is how you feel about your work. You are not alone anymore." Elias took a deep breath, feeling the warmth of her words. He realized he had people who believed in him now. With renewed determination, he returned to his canvas, pouring his heart into every stroke. As the day of the art showcase drew closer, Dorian's anxiety grew. He could no longer ignore the fear that gripped him. What if Elias's art outshined all his achievements? The thought loomed over him like a dark cloud, threatening to overshadow everything he had once taken for granted. The night of the showcase was just around the corner, and both boys were on the cusp of a change that neither of them could fully understand yet. The night of the art showcase finally arrived, and the atmosphere buzzed with excitement. Students and faculty filled the grand hall, admiring the various pieces displayed under the soft glow of the lights. Laughter and chatter echoed off the walls, but there was also a sense of tension in the air. Dorian Hargrove stood among his friends, trying to appear nonchalant, but his heart raced with a mix of anxiety and curiosity about Elias Carter's upcoming unveiling. "Are you ready for this?" one of Dorian's friends asked, smirking as he took a sip of punch. "I can't wait to see what that quiet kid has come up with. Should be good for a laugh." Dorian forced a smile, but he felt a knot forming in his stomach. He had watched as Elias worked tirelessly, pouring his heart into this piece. Part of him wished to see it fail, but another part, a quieter part, felt a flicker of admiration for Elias's dedication. As the moment approached, the crowd quieted, and the spotlight turned toward the small stage where Elias stood. His hands trembled slightly as he prepared to reveal his artwork. The room held its breath, and for a brief moment, Dorian felt a strange sense of solidarity with his classmate. With a deep breath, Elias pulled the cloth away, exposing his masterpiece. Gasps filled the room as the artwork came into view. It was a powerful piece, filled with bold colors and sharp lines, critiquing the hypocrisy of the elite social structure at the school. The faces of the students and faculty reflected surprise and contemplation. Some even looked ashamed. Dorian's eyes widened in disbelief. "What the?" he whispered to his friend, who stood beside him, equally stunned. Elias's piece depicted a group of affluent students, their smiles wide but their eyes hollow, surrounded by shadows that represented the loneliness and pressure they imposed on others. In the center, a smaller figure, Elias himself, stood strong and defiant, holding a paintbrush like a sword. The contrast was striking, and the message resonated with many in the audience. As the crowd began to applaud, Dorian felt a wave of shame wash over him. He had spent so much time trying to maintain his social dominance, yet here was Elias, commanding the room with his talent. The admiration directed toward Elias felt like a tidal wave, and Dorian struggled to process the depth of his own actions. "I can't believe this," he muttered, his heart heavy. "How did I not see this side of him?" His friend shrugged, still caught up in the moment. "Guess you never really cared to look." Elias stood on stage, his expression shifting from nervousness to pride as the applause grew louder. Dorian felt a pang of regret, realizing how cruel he had been to Elias in the past. The laughter he had expected now felt like a distant memory, replaced by the stark truth of his actions. For the first time, Dorian truly saw Elias, not just the quiet boy he had bullied, but a talented artist with a voice that resonated. Their eyes locked for a fleeting moment across the crowded room. Elias's gaze was steady, filled with a mix of triumph and something else. Perhaps a hint of forgiveness, or at least a desire for understanding. As the applause faded, Dorian felt a strong urge to speak up. He wanted to say something that could bridge the gap between them, but the words caught in his throat. Instead, he stepped back, allowing the moment to unfold without interference. The showcase continued, but Dorian's mind was elsewhere. He watched as students flocked to Elias, offering congratulations and praise. He felt like an outsider, trapped in a bubble of guilt. The laughter of his friends rang hollow now, and he questioned the value of the social status he had clung to for so long. Elias, surrounded by newfound friends, smiled genuinely, and Dorian's heart sank. He realized that he had not only hurt Elias, but also missed the chance to connect with someone who had so much depth. As the night progressed, Dorian vowed to himself that he would find a way to make amends. The chapter closed with Dorian standing off to the side, watching Elias soak in the joy of his success. A sense of determination began to grow within him, a desire to understand Elias, to confront the shadows of his past actions, and to step into a new light, one that did not rely on cruelty for validation. After the art showcase, the air was thick with unspoken words and emotions. Dorian Hargrove walked the halls of the prestigious school, his mind a storm of guilt and shame. Each step felt heavier than the last as he replayed the moments from the showcase. He had thought he was above it all, but now he felt small. He spotted a group of friends laughing and chatting, but their voices sounded distant. Dorian glanced around and caught sight of Elias Carter, surrounded by new friends who admired his artwork. The glow of happiness on Elias's face was a stark contrast to the shame Dorian felt within. He approached the group hesitantly, his heart racing. "Hey, Elias," Dorian began, his voice barely above a whisper. The laughter around them faded as Elias turned to face him. "What do you want, Dorian?" Elias asked, his tone cautious. He had every reason to be wary. He was a person trying to change, and Elias was willing to give him a chance. "Well," Elias said, breaking the silence, "if you want to learn about art, you might want to start by looking at the world differently. It's not just about what you see on the surface." Dorian listened intently, eager to absorb every word. "I'd like that. Teach me." Elias smiled, a small but genuine smile that lit up his face. Okay, let's start with the basics. Art is about expressing what you feel, and right now, I think you have a lot to express. As they walked together, something shifted between them. The past had not disappeared, but the first steps toward understanding and friendship had begun. It was a small beginning, but for both Dorian and Elias, it felt like a new chapter was unfolding. As the school year continued, Dorian Hargrove and Elias Carter found themselves in a new kind of relationship. The air was thick with change, filled with the possibilities of forgiveness and understanding. Dorian often felt uneasy, wondering how to approach Elias, but he was determined to make things right. One afternoon, Dorian found Elias sitting alone on a bench in the school courtyard, sketching in his notebook. The sunlight danced on the pages, illuminating the lines and shapes that flowed from Elias's pencil. Dorian took a deep breath, his heart racing as he approached. "Hey, Elias," Dorian said, his voice shaky. Elias looked up, surprised by the sudden appearance of his former bully. "Can we talk?" Elias hesitated, but nodded slowly. "Sure, Dorian. What do you want to say?" Dorian shifted nervously from foot to foot. "I want to apologize. I've been thinking a lot about what I did to you at the social event. It was wrong. I hurt you for no reason." Elias looked at Dorian, searching his eyes for sincerity. "You really mean that?" "Yes," Dorian replied earnestly. "I do. I was trying to impress my friends, and I didn't think about how it would affect you. I see that now. I'm sorry." Elias felt a mix of emotions. He had expected Dorian to brush off his actions, but here was Dorian, vulnerable and honest. "It was really hard for me, you know? I felt so alone and ashamed." "I know," Dorian said, his voice filled with regret. "I was a jerk. I thought being popular made me better than everyone else. But I realize now that it only made me feel worse inside. I don't want to be that person anymore." Elias took a moment to process Dorian's words. "So, what are you going to do?" he asked cautiously. "I want to change," Dorian answered, determination shining in his eyes. "I want to be a better person. Can you help me?" Elias was taken aback. "Help you? Why would I do that?" "Because I want to earn your trust," Dorian replied, his voice softer now. "I want to learn from this. You're talented, and you have a strength I admire. I'd like to be your friend, if you'll let me." A silence fell between them, filled with unspoken thoughts. Elias considered Dorian's offer. He had never imagined this moment would come. "It's not easy to forgive, Dorian. You hurt me a lot." "I understand," Dorian said, nodding, "but I'm willing to try. I'll show you I can change, one step at a time." Elias took a deep breath, feeling the weight of his own pain. "Okay, I will try to forgive you, but it will take time. You need to prove that you mean this." "Thank you," Dorian said, relief flooding his voice. "I will. I promise." From that day forward, their relationship began to shift. Dorian started to support Elias in his art. He attended every art club meeting and even asked to help with the next showcase. Elias was surprised but welcomed the help. One afternoon, while they worked on a project, Dorian shared his thoughts. "You know, I've been thinking about what you said at the showcase. Your art speaks so much truth. It made me realize how I took my privilege for granted." Elias smiled slightly. "It's good that you're thinking about it. Art can open people's eyes." "Yeah," Dorian agreed. "I want to use my voice for good now. I don't want to just be known for my name or my wealth. I want to stand for something meaningful." As they continued to work together, they found common ground. Dorian learned to appreciate the beauty in Elias's art, while Elias discovered that Dorian could be more than just the bully he once knew. Their friendship blossomed, built on mutual respect and understanding. As the school year progressed, both boys embraced their new paths. Dorian focused on being kinder and more aware of others, while Elias poured his heart into his art, using it as a form of expression and empowerment. In the end, Dorian and Elias stood side by side at the next art showcase, their bond stronger than before. They knew that the road ahead might still be challenging, but they were ready to face it together, united by the transformative power of forgiveness and friendship. Share this story if you believe that forgiveness can pave the way for true friendship. Leave a comment about a time when an unexpected conversation changed your perspective, and subscribe for more inspiring stories like this one.